This is Dead Serious, a show about short horror stories worthy of discussion. I'm Dead Pallid, and it's Halloween month, Scooda losers. Today we are going to continue reading Feed the Pig. Let's get right back into this motherfucker. She took a step closer. Are you still deciding whether you're going to feed the pig or not? I looked at her, cautiously. Yeah, I am. Who are you? What do you want? I was once where you are now, she said, trying to decide my fate. I couldn't believe that this was what had happened. What happened after we die? It wasn't what I was taught. Religion didn't warn me about this place. I tested my bindings again before asking, You killed yourself too? You're a person like me? You're not one of those creations? She snorted. Breaks my heart you have to ask, though. She touched my hole. Oh my god. She touched the hole where her eye should have been. Though I can understand your caution. Yeah, I'm a suicidal. I've been here a long, long time. But that was my choice. I decided to chance it here. I motioned with my head towards the door. What's out there? What is all of this? She exhaled heavily and leaned against the wall. I can't even begin to describe this place. It's like nothing you've ever seen. You walk down the hallway and go out into it, and she swallowed. You'd have to see it to understand. How bad is it? Why are all these mutated people hurting and killing each other? I asked. This scene so far has a decent pacing, not too much to say, so I think we should press on until we get more information that we can actually talk about. She let her head loll back against the wall. It would take years for you to fully understand this place. Years you don't have. Right now, you have to make a decision. Stay or feed the pig. They tell me, hell is worse than here, but it can't be by much. Monsters and suicidals roam the Black Farm, killing, raping, brutalizing. And then you wake up and wonder how long you can survive before something else kills you. It's an endless cycle. So why did you stay? I pressed. Why didn't you feed the pig? I don't even know what that means, but I would do anything for a chance to go back. I can't stay here. I just can't. She smiled sadly at me. Why? Why did I choose this? It's simple, really. I'm a coward. I was a coward when I was alive, and I'm a coward in death. When it came down to it, when the moment presented itself, I chose to stay here. I didn't know what awaited me outside. It boiled down to a simple choice, fueled by my own fear. So we still haven't learned what feeding the pig actually means, although it was implied earlier that it's very literal, that you're just feeding the pig and somehow they get you out. I'm also theorizing that it's a possibility that maybe you have to be eaten limb from limb by the pig, and then you wake up back in life and you didn't commit suicide. The mechanics of how you can unsuicide yourself in reality, the passage of time and whatnot, those things are really unclear. But we're getting a better sense of what the Black Farm would look like on the outside, that there's killing, raping, brutalizing, and all that stuff, and that if you die, you just come back. But what I don't get is how permanent death is here, how the injuries work, all of these kinds of questions. Again, these questions are just going to build up, and I don't think that we're going to get a satisfying explanation as to these things. However, the concept that if you come to the Black Farm and you want to get out, there's not enough time to fully comprehend what the Black Farm is and the scope of its insanity. So that gives us reason to kind of be rushed along and not give us too many answers. I don't know how much of a saving grace that's going to be, but let's press on. What is the pig? What does it do to you? I pressed. She suddenly turned to go. I'm afraid that's for you to find out. But let me warn you, think hard before you make a decision. Sometimes suffering through your fear is better than suffering for eternity. Be brave. What do? I yelled, shaking my chair as she walked out the door. She paused and took one last look over her shoulder. Her eye darted around and dropped her voice to a whisper. Feed the pig. And with that, she was gone. That's weird that we're still talking about feeding the pig when he already decided he's going to do it no matter what it is, that he wants to get out of here. And then this scene kind of feels unnecessary. I'm not even sure why she was there, because she didn't explain anything. She didn't elaborate really enough to justify what had just transpired. We didn't get a good... I wonder if this character is going to come back up, because I feel like that's the only reason that the scene would exist, is to introduce us to this woman. And with that, she was gone. I sat in silence once again. My mind was spinning, desperately turning over my options. I still couldn't fully understand the situation I was in. It was too much, too overwhelming. The other side of death isn't supposed to be like this. I didn't know what to expect, but it wasn't this nightmare. Really? Did you never read Dante's Inferno? Did you never hear about this stuff at church or through people that go to church? Hell is supposed to suck and purgatory is not much better. Have you ever seen any fiction where hell is depicted? I don't know. This is just a little ridiculous to say that you wouldn't have predicted that there is an afterlife like this when that concept has existed. Whether you believe in it or not, whatever. I mean, I don't. But the concept is there, right? Questions crashed over my mind like cold waves onto a sinking ship. How was I supposed to make a choice when I didn't even know what my actions entailed? This place, the Black Farm, I couldn't stay here. But what if I went to hell? What if I didn't get sent back? I would be out of this fire, and I would be out of the fire and into the frying pan. My existence would forever be damned to unending misery. Though here there were people like me, suicidals. It wasn't all monsters and mutilated murderers. Maybe I could hold up somewhere with them, trying to scrape together a passable existence. Surely that would be better than getting sent to hell. So again, we're having more of this internal dialogue that it feels like it's talking about things that were just talked about before, with the woman that showed up. No, this wasn't going to be how I spent my eternity. I refused to let it be. If there was even the slightest sliver of hope, I would take it. I didn't want to wonder what could have been. I didn't want to be tormented by doubt. I would feed the pig and accept whatever fate chose for me. When I boil it down, that was the only option left. I would feed the pig. He's said this 50 fucking times now. He's decided he's going to feed the pig. It's like he's sitting in front of a dick and he's just like, I want to suck that dick. And then he just waits and waits and waits. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Nom nom nom, come here. I just don't get this. Hey, hello, Danny, I yelled, rattling in my chair. I made my decision. Danny. After a couple of seconds, I heard footsteps echo down the hall towards me. Danny walked through the doorway, an annoyed look on his face. I've made my choice, I said. I'm going to feed the pig. Sounds like you really thought a lot about it since you left, Danny said sarcastically. Yeah, he fucking did. I licked my lips. You would do the same thing if you were in my place. Danny walked behind me. I was in your place once, and I chose differently. My eyes widened, and then Danny wrapped my entire head with a strip of thin cloth, blinding me. I sucked in as much air as I could, but each lungful felt empty. I felt Danny cut me free from the chair, and my body sighed as my stiff muscles were released. I rolled my shoulders, and my hands were released, and I moaned in relief. I blew my load everywhere. I dug my fingers into the back into my back and stretched, my bones creaking. "Keep your blindfold on and follow me," Danny said, pulling me up. My legs shook as I put weight on them. My thighs trembled after their long, cemented position. I groped blindly in front of me and found Danny's shoulder. I rested my hand on it, and as he walked us out of the room. As we entered the hallway, I could suddenly hear sound I hadn't before. The clank of metal, the long, fleshy tearing noise, something vomiting. These sounds sprang to life in my ears, painting the darkness before my eyes with imaginary scenes of horror. I gripped Danny's shoulder tightly, stumbling behind him, my heart thundering. So there's some sort of gimmick going on here, as to why he's being blindfolded. I'm wondering if it's for us, the reader, to imply something worse than actually showing us what it is, or if it's because there's some sort of deception at play. There's obviously information being withheld. The question is, why is this being done? Is this being done by our author, or is this being done to our narrator? You know what I mean? I heard something trailing behind us, but Danny didn't seem to notice. Or if he did, he didn't care. Flesh slapped the concrete mere inches behind me, and I suddenly felt hot breath on my neck, and the click of a wet tongue against my gums. My breathing became even more labored as fear choked me. The click of a wet tongue against gums, not his gums, okay. Then Danny took my hand and said, "This is monkey brains," and he put my hand into a bowl, and I felt monkey brains. It kind of felt like cold spaghetti. "Going to feed the pig, are you?" something whispered in my ear. I felt something press against the back of my head, and I tried not to think about what it might be. It was wet and slimy, and I heard the thing chuckle. "You're, hungry, piggy. You make sure he gets his meal now," the thing whispered again, the voice low and unlike anything I'd ever heard before. It was like a series of grunts and moans jumbled together to form broken words. To my relief, I heard the thing retreat back to wherever it had come from, and I continued to follow Danny. He remained silent as we walked, and I could hear shifts in the air. The thick heat gave way to a cooler, almost pleasant temperature, but it kept decreasing, and soon I was shivering violently against the cold. I couldn't see anything, but I felt a breeze on my face, like we were outside. I didn't hear Danny open any doors, but nothing about this place was natural. It was like reality blurred and bled into itself, like reels of film melting together. It's weird that you would say that, our narrator, because we have no understanding of what any of this looks like. It's like you're in a haunted house, and the haunted house is completely black, and all it is a Halloween sound tape, that you get at the dollar store. Maybe it's a really good one, but still. Teeth chattering. I was suddenly blasted with an intense heat, and I gasped. My feet tripped over themselves as the terrain changed, and I was suddenly walking on what felt like warm iron. My ears were filled with the sounds of My ears filled with the sound of blazing furnaces and the clash of working machinery. I was truly in Silent Hill. I couldn't see it, but it felt like there was a vast open expanse overhead. I smelled ash and tasted dirt on my tongue, sweat already forming along my spine. Suddenly, I crashed into Danny as he came to a halt. I backed up a few paces quickly and muttered my apologies. I could hear movement in front of us, a rustle of chains and an odd clicking sound on the metal floor. something else to something snorting. We keep getting all of this information about kind of him trying to sense something that he doesn't necessarily understand, kind of like a sixth sense of like the sky being open above him, and I think that that's pretty interesting. I'm just really wondering why he's blindfolded, whether it's going to be explained or not. Maybe it's something where if you actually see the full scale of these horrors, it will drive you insane and all will be for naught or whatever, but I'm not sure if it's going to be explained. In the room filled with the deafening sound of an immense pig squealing, it covered my ears, head splitting at the high-pitched wail. I grit my teeth as the noise echoed off the metal and faded into a series of snorts and grunts. It sounded absolutely enormous. "I've brought another one," Danny announced, a slight tinge of respect lining his voice. "He wants to feed the pig." I waited, expecting to hear some answer, the cloth around my eyes sealing my sight into darkness. I realized my knees were shaking and my back was coated in sweat. I was terrified. We're doing a nice job of setting up the scene here, and there's going to be some sort of reveal. I'm really hoping that all of this tension has a good payoff, because this writer has a good job of setting up tension. I think that there's been a little bit of wasted space, but I'm feeling the tension, and I think your average reader would feel that tension too. So let's see what happens. "If that is what you wish," Danny said, and I felt him bow under my hand. Apparently, some unseen conversation had just happened, and Danny took my wrist and pushed me forward. "Approach the pig," he instructed. My whole body trembled, and my knees locked into place. Robbed of sight, I raised my hands, trying to get my bearings. The heat and ash filling my head with nausea. I felt like I was going to throw up, my stomach rolling like a dead sea. I didn't know where I was or what horror lay before me. I felt lost and tiny. A fresh splash of tears dripping down my eyes and soaking onto the cloth around my face. Okay, that's not weird phrasing. Okay, please, I begged. Let me see what's happening. Danny was suddenly behind me, pushing me forward. He guided my hips and pushed my penis he guided my hands towards something as we stepped together in unison. Even the cloth around my face, I could see a giant mass of towering darkness before me. It was a spot of black on an entirely darkened canvas. As we walked forward, I was suddenly assaulted by a horrendous smell, and I gagged, turning away. Danny's grip tightened and forced me to continue. I could sense something just in front of me, a living, shifting mass of flesh. The smell increased to a wretched level, and I gagged again. The hot air was being blown on my face, the blast of heat that came in repeated short bursts. This is all really working for me. It feels like it's Pig Cthulhu, like if I stare upon this actual pig with my, like just my raw eyes, if I just witness this pig, I'm going to go insane, and I really hope that that's what they're building too. I vomited onto my cloth, the source of the smell stemming from the hot air. I choked as the bile gushed over the fabric, soaking it and momentarily cutting off my oxygen. Oh, that's fucking crazy. He is getting waterboarded with his own puke. That is insane. Danny slapped my hands away and took a few seconds to steady my breathing again. I was openly crying now, fear and misery collapsing my willpower. The wet cloth stunk, and I sucked in soggy breaths. My own stomach acid coated my skin, and I begged for all of this to be over. And then something squealed directly in front of me. I felt my bladder go. I was standing before the pig. It was the source of darkness in my obscured vision, a fat, titanic creature that filled my senses with every breath it blew into my face. Danny raised my hands, and suddenly I was touching the pig's snout. I recoiled immediately, but Danny forced my hands back. Its fur was stiff and brittle, and as my shaking hands explored up its nose, the size of the animal became clear to me. It was gigantic and weighed over a ton. I know, because fucking reasons. Its flesh wiggled under my sweating hands, and it opened its mouth slightly. My fingers curled around the teeth of the size of kitchen knives, and I realized its mouth was absolutely cavernous. The pig squealed again, and I heard its hooves clack against the ground. It sounded like thunder rolling across an open field in the middle of summer. A lot of care and attention went into writing the very vivid metaphors and similes that are just all across the story, and they're doing a nice job of setting the scene. I get a very visceral idea of what this pig looks like without seeing it, and that is a pretty cool, effective thing, I've got to say. I was kind of conflicted on it. I'm really coming around to the whole blindfold thing, but I just hope there's a reason for it, The pig squealed again, and I heard its hooves clack against the ground. It sounded like, okay, I'm a genius. Take this blindfold off, please, I begged, my legs turning to jelly. Danny had taken a few steps back, and I heard reverence in his voice. You don't want to do that. I jumped as the pig nudged me with its nose, a wet circle of flesh squishing against the length of my nose. Suddenly, I shuddered away, raising my hand and emitting a cry of fear, playing Cry of Fear. I love Cry of Fear. I love Cry of Fear because all the Let's Players tell me to like Cry of Fear. Feed the pig, Danny instructed, his voice like cold steel now. You made your choice. Now live with it. It's the only chance you have of going back, or maybe the pig won't like how you taste and send you to hell. Only one way to find out. My eyes widen behind the vomit so clot. Won't like how I taste? Climb into its mouth. So this obvious thing that we knew was going to happen, like it was very clear that he was going to be eaten by the pig, and the pig is going to shit him out in hell or back into reality where he's already committed suicide. I'm still kind of confused on the logistics of this. My bladder let go again, and I felt warm piss run down my leg. No, you can't mean. Hold on a second, so he's pissing himself again? Like, how is that physiologically possible? Like, if you just peed, and then less than a minute later, after fully emptying your bladder, you gotta pee again? That's just fucking, what? Danny's voice hardened. Climb into its mouth, and don't stop crawling forward until it's done with you. But please, I begged, turning towards Danny's voice, reaching out blindly. Please, there has to be another way out. Don't make me do this. I was a mess of snot and tears, my words bumbling out of my mouth like a toddler. Danny stepped forward and spun me back to face the pig. Do it. You made your choice. It will all be over soon. This is your only chance. Okay, so it's not explained to people what feeding the pig exactly means when they show up, and yet some people were afraid of it. I mean, I guess that we're supposed to infer that they were afraid of whatever the implications of feeding the pig meant, but I don't know. I feel like, yeah, even if you're not going to give me information, I need a little bit more information than what we have right now. The concept of the Black Farm is the thing that's the driving force to me, and it feels like we're going to leave the Black Farm. Excuse me. It feels like we're going to leave the Black Farm before we really get anything truly out of it, I could feel the pig breathing onto my face, its snout mere inches from mine. The smell and the heat omitted made me want to vomit again, but I held it back. This was insane. This couldn't be happening. My mind spun and twisted in chaos and fear. There had to be some other way. I couldn't do this. I could not Do this. Suddenly I remembered the words of the woman. Sometimes suffering through your fear is better than suffering for eternity. Be brave. I don't know that we really needed the woman to, just tell us that. I feel like that's kind of a disposable character, I don't know. I'm so conflicted on this story. I'm so back and forth on it. Because it's creating tension well, but it just has all of these other weird things going on that are nagging at me. This was going to be my only chance to get back to the world of the living. I made such a terrible mistake by killing myself. If I could go back and change my life, I wouldn't have to spend eternity here. I could change my ways and sure a spot somewhere else, somewhere away from the pig. Yeah, heaven. Like, what? But what if it decided to send me to hell? How much more suffering could I endure? I had to take the chance. God, please, God. Oh my God, I can read. I literally did the exact opposite of what it said, read the exact opposite of what was there. Please, God, I whispered, taking a step forward. If you can hear me, please have mercy on me. My shaking hands reached out for the pig, and I grasped its fur. I felt it slowly lower its head and open its mouth. It was waiting for me. Its thick, meaty dick, its thick, hot breath stinking in my nostrils. This was it. No turning back now. My body is ready for you to get fucking eaten already. I slowly gripped its teeth and pulled myself forward into its jaws. Its head was at a downward angle, so I immediately fell onto my stomach at a 45-degree angle. Its wet tongue squished under me, and I was shaking so hard I could barely breathe. Tears soaked my blindfold, and my heart crunched against my ribs. My heart crunched against my ribs. That is some weird fucking phrasing. I slowly reached forward and found another tooth to grab onto. Gritting my teeth, I pulled my body inwards past my knees. The pig raised its head, and I was suddenly completely horizontal on its tongue. Alright, if you're into vor porn, get the lube ready, because I think things are about to warm up. And if you're into unbirth, you might also want to get prepared, but don't get too excited. I'm not sure that things are going to take that direction. Saliva and mucus dripped around me, and the heat was so intense I almost blacked out. My knees clacked against its front teeth as I pulled myself even deeper. Its inner cheeks pressed around me, squeezing my body like a soaking, fleshy coffin. Crying, terrified. Like, I get it. Crying and terrified. Yes, you're crying and terrified. I understand that. But we're contemplating, we're meditating on the crying and the being terrified so much. Again, they're doing the same thing with, like, I threw up, and there was a lot of snot, and I peed myself, and then I peed myself again from my second bladder that I have. Like, this needs to be pared down some. Even though the tension is working, it needs to come quicker because you're predicting what's going to happen anyway. I mean, it's frustrating. I reached ahead of me and found more teeth. I pulled myself deeper into its mouth, and I felt my feet slide past its lips. My whole body was coated in slime, and I openly wept, grasping in the darkness for another tooth. That's when the pig started to chew me. Oh boy, here I go, chewing again. I screamed in crushing agony as my body was compressed between its massive teeth. I heard my legs snap instantly, and I felt wet bone pop from my skin. I shook violently as my body spasmed in shock, a mangled twist of blood and pain. Its tongue shifted me in its mouth, and I felt it bite down on my shoulder. My eyes bulged in their sockets as I howled, a hot pillar crunching down on my collarbone. I threw up violently, unable to control myself, and then I peed again, and then I threw up some more, and then I shot snot out of my butthole. The pain was overwhelming. Keep crawling. Screaming, bloodshot eyes rolled wildly. I reached forwards with my good arm, wetly searching for another tooth. I gripped my teeth, blood squirting between them as my fingers wrapped around something solid. The pig bit down, its tongue twisting my body so its molar could snap down on my knee. The pain brought darkness, but my howling screams forced my eyes to remain open. I wonder if you would go into shock at this point. I wonder how long you would stay conscious in this situation, or how long it would take your body to go into shock and just not feel anything. I don't know. I'm not a giant pig digestive expert, you know. The pig bit down again. Its tongue twisted off. Jesus, make it stop, I bellowed, my trembling hand still gripping the tooth ahead of me. Please make it fucking stop. I ground my teeth together so hard they cracked, screaming as I slowly pulled my body deeper into the mouth. That's weird. I think why would you be compelled to go deeper into the mouth? Wouldn't you just let nature take its course? I don't know. Something was changing. The tight walls of its throat squeezed my head, and I realized I was almost through. Come on, you motherfucker, come on, I begged. Vocal cords cracking, I reached ahead of me and grabbed onto a thick wad of flesh. My head felt like it was splitting, and the pig bit down on me again. I gasped, blood exploding from my mouth, and a gush of red. It had pierced through my stomach. Obliterating my insides like bloated noodles. Darkness rushed onto me, and I was in too much shock to even scream. With the last of my strength, right as the blackness took me, I pulled myself forward one last time and felt myself slide down its throat. Darkness. Falling. Screaming. I was screaming. Heat. Heat so intense, I thought I would melt. Our narrator here truly has the melt-in-your-mouth qualities that you want out of a suicidal. Clanging. Something was hammering on metal. Colors and images flew past me so quickly I could only make out their shape. Blood poured into my eyes. I felt like I would keep falling forever. How about this for a twist? He doesn't actually wake up in hell or back in life. He gets set back to the same place where he was. He's just back at the beginning of the Black Farm. That'd be a twist. I felt like I would keep falling forever. Suddenly my eyes snapped open and I was falling, my breath rushing back into my lungs in a great wave of purity. My face bounced off the wood floor and I cried out as I felt my nose break. I tasted blood and saw stars. I had stopped falling. There was a ring of burning fire around my throat, and I felt impossibly thirsty. I was lying on the floor. I slowly opened my eyes again, and the darkness began to fade like morning mist under a hot sun. Colors blended together, and shapes came into focus. I was in my wood shed. I had reached up around my throat and gasped at the source of heat. It was the rope that I had hung myself with, but it was now severed, releasing me from my grip of death. And at that moment, I realized, isn't the real It's a Wonderful Life the friends we made along the way? Relief rolled over me in overwhelming waves of thanks. I curled up on the floor and sobbed, tears dripping from my eyes onto the dirty floor. My body shook, unbroken, and I wept. Wet hoarse cries rising from my quivering lips. Guys and gals, it's the wrong kind of horse. It's a wet horse. It's a My Little Pony that's wet. I had been spared. I was alive again. From my spawn on the floor, I turned my eyes upward, my voice cracking. Thank you, God. Oh, thank you. I fell onto another fit of uncontrollable sobbing. I promise I won't waste my life again. I promise I will make things right. I'll fix everything. Shouldn't you be thanking the pig? The pig is the one that brought you back to life. God really didn't have anything to do with it. God was looking the other way, remember? I don't know how long it was before I got up, Time seemed to stretch on for eternity. My mind refused to rebuild the horrors of what I had just witnessed crushing me, but I knew I would do everything I could to make the most out of my life. I was going to live every day to the fullest house even. I would devote myself to helping others in dark times. I would reach out to as many suicidals as I could to try and save them from awaiting on the other side. It should be from what awaited on the other side. I didn't want anyone else to have to witness the horrors of suicide. I didn't want anyone else to have to feed the pig. So it felt like we were really building towards the concept of the Black Farm, and in the end, the Black Farm was kind of neglected in this story. We got very little of the Black Farm. We got more of the pig than the Black Farm, and I think the Black Farm was where the money was at. I kind of wanted to explore this world, and I think for the length of the story, we could have seen more of it. A good thing to keep in mind always is the rule of threes. If you want people to remember something, show them 3 of it. Our character interacts with 2 other characters, Danny and the woman. I can't remember if the woman even had a name, the woman with one eye. I feel like a 3rd character really would have added to that, because as it is right now, it just feels like the woman really wasn't serving that much of a purpose. Then we see one set of horror, which is the guy without limbs and the screw teeth and his owner who is masturbating. That seems like one horror, and it's like, okay, is another horror going to show up? And no, it was just the one thing. This could have been expanded in some places, given more brevity in others. We didn't need all of the wetting of the pants and all of the throwing up. That seems kind of like a cheap way to explain that someone is scared without something else accompanying it, explaining that, But we got the idea. You're crying. Yeah, you're crying. Something horrifying's happening to you. You don't have to remind us that you're crying. We get that you're crying. It got really repetitive. We got some comments here. Christian Wallace. I liked a lot of this story, but it felt unordinarily preachy and self-righteous. The ending was, I would say that, but overall, I didn't feel that too much. From Jenny Linksky, I like the ending because it was hopeful. It makes the story stand out among creepypastas. I don't know about that. You can have some sort of moralizing and it still work, but the ending here just didn't do much for me. I felt like there should be something else there. He's promising to go out and do this stuff, but will he keep up with that? And I don't know. It was just kind of an abrupt ending for how much build-up there was, certainly. Overall, mixed feelings, but I think there are lessons to take away from this about how to build tension, that's for sure. Now, if you enjoyed that, please consider helping out the community and supporting my channel. You can support the community by conversing in the comments below, going to toospooky.com for original horror stories, and trying your hand at short horror yourself. You can support me by liking this video, following me on Twitter and Tumblr, links in the description, and checking out my art page, which is also down below. Thank you so much for your time, and now on to our sponsor at this non-moment in time, which is Reese's Pieces. Reese's Pieces. Feed them to your extraterrestrials and giant behemoth Lovecraftian pigs.